Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome. My name is Dr. Roney. I am here with Sylvie Beljanski. And Sylvie, the name of the book?
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for mentioning my book. My book is Winning the War and Cancer, the Epic Journey Towards a Natural Cure.
Love it. Love it. Sylvie and I were just talking off camera, just going over some of the history and some of the things of her work and her dad's work. And I honestly think you're going to love it. There's a lot of research that went behind many of these things, if not all of them, that showed quite some positive responses, right? So Sylvia is going to go over that with you. I want her to talk a bit about her dad's story. I think that's super relevant for you to hear that. And then the evolution of some of the findings that he had, and then carrying on his legacy, if you will, is what Sylvie has kind of championed over the years. So I'll have her tell you that story and then some of the positive things that she's learned over the years via the research. So if you're new to the cancer conversation, welcome. And I think a plan like this, and I tell everybody every day that will listen, if you have a good plan, it's well researched, and you can work the details of that plan, you may lose some battles here and there, but you'll probably, have a better chance of winning that war. And that's the goal. It's always about mitigating the downside and maximizing the upside as much as we can. And I think the 4-pillar approach that we implement here, and we've added to it. So if you started with us, say a few years ago with these cancer conversations, we now have more testing and more treatments. So there's things being added as we learn, right? Because we're still learning day in and day out. As we learn more and more, we just keep adding to make sure that we give you the best chance to heal. And we put these, Dr. Keneally's done a really good job of putting all these under one roof. So without further ado, let me walk you through just briefly, I'll do it briefly, the 4-pillar approach to care. And what I say all the time is this is unbiased necessarily to the clinic. I think we have great doctors, very experienced doctors that I trust dearly. And I also think we have more tools in the toolbox than most clinics. However, I'm unbiased to that when I talk about the plan. I just want to share with you the plan because it's not something that you typically get from the conventional model of care or really on your day-to-day lives, unless you go explore it. So I think sharing with you, and for some of you, maybe it's just opening a door or planting a seed. I really think that's important from a teaching standpoint. So let me go through. The first pillar is going to be the testing. So the testing will include everything from scans and PET scans and MRIs and ultrasounds, all the things that even in the conventional model that they would do, and a lot of the blood work that the conventional doctors would do. However, there's some additional things that are really, really important to start creating a more comprehensive, more individualized plan for your body and your DNA specifically. One of those tests, we use a test out of Greece called the RGCC test. That test helps test your circulating tumor cell activity. So if I have a primary tumor, for example, there are cells that can cleave off that original tumor and circulate in the body, kind of a stem cell, if you will. And those can, if they're elevated, even with absence of the primary tumor, meaning we get no evidence of disease, if those stem cells are still elevated or circulating tumor cells, they could turn into reoccurrence. So, and the evidence is clear that they could. I'm not saying they will, and the evidence doesn't say they absolutely will, but they could. So we want to know if you have circulating tumor cell activity and start knocking that down as part of your plan to prevent reoccurrence as best we can. Okay. We might test things like nagalase and PHI. As an example, nagalase is an enzyme that's secreted by the cancer cell that, to keep it simple, is like a defense mechanism. It blocks our immune system ability to identify and attack the cancer cell. So with that, if we see nagalase is elevated, we have protocols that we want to lower that. If we see something called PHI is elevated, that tells us a lot of information, but it tells us that there's more of an anaerobic state going on within the cell, which means it's low oxygen. So as cells become damaged, they get less oxygen. They go from aerobic to anaerobic respiration, and they get more acidic. So we want to identify as much about the cellular environment as possible to make sure that we can tailor a plan to you specifically. So in that case, that's oxygen therapies, maybe ozone, the EBU that we talk about week in and week out here. We could do hyperbaric, we could do CVAC, we could do different things to increase that oxygen if that test comes back elevated. So ladies and gentlemen, there's just a couple or a few tests that I wanted to highlight, but there's many, many more that we use to individualize the plan. But for sake of time, we'll touch on those. Once we get that data, then we start to refine or define the plan even more. Okay. And that might take a couple days to a couple weeks to get back, but we certainly want to use that objective data to guide us in your care. The second pillar is starving the cancer and killing the cancer. So the starving, could be using those repurposed drugs. If you haven't been on, we talk about things like metformin. That's metformin that's used as an anti-diabetic med. It helps stabilize blood sugar, blood glucose. That can be used to help, and I'm keeping it simple, block some of the pathways that feed the cancer cell. So repurposed medication are used in medicine for one goal, but yet in the cancer world, it can be used for to help block metabolically the cancer and feeding of the cancer. Now, again, I'm leaving out some details there, but that's just the general so you understand it. Then we could do the kill phase. The kill phase could be chemo, surgery, radiation, immunotherapies. It could be our natural therapies or a combination of all the above, right? So in our clinic, we do the most invasive we would do is what they call insulin potentiated chemotherapy. So bring the blood sugar down and then infuse the chemo agents. So there's a bit more targeted therapy there. And we can use less of the chemo percentage because we're targeting it a little bit better. Okay, so that gives you the testing, which is pillar one. Pillar two is the starve phase, the kill phase. And then pillar three would include things like immune boosting therapies, vitamin C, mistletoe, things such as that. Some of the supplements that we might use to increase the immune system. We would use oxygen therapies, alkalizing therapies. We may use therapies that will increase the voltage of the cell based on Tennant's research. And we had him on, Dr. Tennant on about a month and a half ago. Really, really good webinar that we did, or cancer conversation on the voltage of the cell. And what happens is it reduces, which makes the cell hard to heal. So we've implemented MEAD testing here, and then we do biocharger and the bioimmune or biomodulator therapies to help increase the voltage of the cell. So that would include pillar three. Pillar four is about the causes, right? And some of those causes, like we were talking about off camera, are things like the foods that we eat creating an inflammatory response. It could be the toxins and the liver's inability to detox as well as it used to, or that we're overwhelmed with toxins. It could be chemicals. It could be heavy metals. It could be mycotoxins. It could be infections in the body like bacteria, viral infections such as Epstein-Barr, could be candida, could be, parasites, right? All these different things that are foreign in our body could be settling in the tissues, creating this inflammatory response. That inflammatory response starts to create damage or oxidative stress to the cell. And I'm leaving out a lot of steps, but then that could lead to the damage of the DNA and the genomes, which then could create these cells not going through apoptosis or cell death, and they replicate out of control. Again, a lot of steps missing, but just to give you an idea of, from a cause standpoint, we've got these fuels that cause the fire. When the fire's high, that inflammatory fire's high, that's when the cell can become damaged even more. And then we have metabolic issues like it could be thyroid and blood sugar. We could have issues with cortisol and hormone balance, exposure to EMFs. The list is pretty long, but just to mention a few to give you an idea that, again, conventionally, if they cut it out or they chemo it or they do surgery on it or radiate it, I should say, they're never looking at changing the cellular environment. They're never looking at the causes. So as I like to say, that's one chapter of a 20-chapter book that could be necessary, but we want to marry that with the other 19 chapters of the book in order to give you the best chance to heal. Okay, so that's my 3 to 5 minute, I hope I kept it in that time frame, summary of the 4-pillar approach. But no matter where you are, if you're trying to follow some guideline or some plan, that's a pretty good plan to at least get you moving in a very good direction to help restore health and to help kill those cancer cells. So Sylvie, that was a lot, I know, but I don't know. I'd like you to comment on that and tell me what you think about that process. Do you like it?
Great. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I fully agree with everything you said. It is absolutely the way to go. I mean, the science is a lot of things that we do have, and we must know in order to take proper care of ourselves. There is no reason why not to use everything that we have at our disposal. Just about knowledge and empowerment.
That's exactly right.
So it's so great that you provide that to and share your knowledge with the audience.
I love it. I love it. And Sylvie has championed this for years, right? So I'll kind of let you take the microphone, if you will, because I really want them to know the story. So I did my due diligence. I read the story about what your dad has accomplished and research and so forth, and you're carrying that on. But I want you to tell the story of what he has done, of course, and then some of the things that happened to him throughout his career. I think that's really relevant. So if you don't mind, do you mind talking a little bit about that?
Sure. But first I would like to make clear for everybody, I'm not a doctor. I am not an MD. Actually, I'm a French lawyer by trade. So I came to this field out of outrage. I'm still outraged 30 years later. So I keep continuing the good fight, but want to make clear that I am not a doctor, and I'm sharing the knowledge that I have got by carrying the legacy as much as I could, but I do not have any medical background. So that said, indeed, about this legacy, I grew up seeing both of my parents working at the Pasteur Institute in Paris, France. My father was a biologist, a PhD in molecular biology, and he was passionate about his work, absolutely passionate. And he was not a very social animal, and he made a lot of enemies while looking for answers.
Right.
Was looking for answers. He was not looking to please other people at the Pasteur Institute, and he was not good at the politics of science. He was just good at searching in the test tube what was true and what was working. And we have a picture of him. That is a picture, slide number 8. Yeah. When I was growing up, I was seeing so many people coming home were grateful because my father had helped them. So I knew it was complicated. I thought it was not for me, but I knew it was important, and I grew up seeing how I was able to make a difference in a lot of people's lives. So it is only years later, only after my father passed away in dramatic conditions, that I decided to try to understand what the science was about. And I felt it was important to carry on with a legacy. So I created a non-for-profit organization in New York City, a 501c3 called the Beljanski Foundation. And we have been very lucky to be able to carry on with the research, to have partnerships with Columbia University, with Kansas University Medical Center, with Cancer Treatment Centers of America. And all that, those partnerships have led to new peer-reviewed papers and new knowledge that I'm trying to share the best as I can. And that's what I am doing.
So when you mentioned the passion came from outrage, right? Just to be clear.
Definitely. Definitely. Yeah. What happened is my father was considered as being coined the father of environmental medicine. If you look at the next slide, you have to understand that back in the 80s, 70s, 80s, cancer was only looked upon as a result of a genetic mutation. And the genetic mutation what happened would make a change at the level of the nucleotides that to keep together the two strands of the DNA. And my father made the observation that even without a mutation, of course you can have some mutations, but even without presence of a genetic mutation, you can have some changes that happen due to our environment. Yeah. And there is a difference between a healthy DNA, which always looks like the one at the top with the two strands well kept together, and a cancer DNA. And whether you look at the plant kingdom, the animal kingdom, the human kingdom, a cancer cell looks always like the picture below, with those big loops, and the hydrogen bonds are not keeping together the two strands of the DNA. And that's when it's open, that then you have an increased rate of synthesis of the cancer DNA. Yeah. So he said, okay, so the environment actually is able to induce those change. So let's screen, and then we get to the next picture. Let's screen a number of molecules to see if they induce an increased rate of synthesis of cancer DNA, here shown in red. Here in line, the first in line A is a well-known carcinogen, so it is a reference. And then you compare other molecules and you see if they act like a carcinogen. What you see is that vinblastine, which is a chemotherapy, at some dosage may act like a carcinogen. Same thing with the steroid hormone, like testosterone. Of course. I mean, naturally, you have testosterone, a little bit more, a little bit less, depending if you are a man or a woman, but it's not carcinogenic. But at some times, at some degree, in some certain conditions, it can fuel the cancer. And that you see, that can be shown through this test that my father called the oncotest. Then in line B, you have the neutrals, no effect either on cancer DNA, here shown in red, or on healthy DNA, shown in green. Then you have the toxics. They inhibit the synthesis of cancer DNA, so like the diquat or paraquat. So that's great. Unfortunately, they also inhibit the rate of synthesis of healthy DNA. So if there is no life possible if you do not create new cells. So that's defoliants. That's the family of the Agent Orange, for example. And then you have the perfect anti-cancer substance, and that would be one, theoretically, that would inhibit selectively the synthesis of cancer DNA and has no effect on LcDNA. And he was able to find not one, but two such natural substance able to do just that. And if you look to the next slide.
Yep. So just to recap, this is where he was working on the anti-cancer substance to pretty much for the perfect blend, right?
Exactly. So perfect molecules that would do that.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So here you go, ladies and gentlemen.
And he found two plants that are, when he's doing the extract of the plant, of the bark of the paupera, which grows from South America, or the Revolfia vomitoria, which comes from Africa, well, they act exactly like the perfect anti-cancer substances, meaning they recognize cancerous cells. They will be able to invade cancerous cells and won't touch healthy cells. That's the selectivity of action. If you look the next one, if you look the next slide, you see the paupera extract, for example, is naturally fluorescent. So you can see under the microscope, you can see that it remains outside the molecule here. We have a healthy astrocyte.
Mm-hmm.
On the opposite here, you have a cancerous cell, a glioblastoma cell, and it's able to penetrate. And then you click again, click, and you see under UV light, you see really how much the fluorescence is really targeting those cancerous cells. It's not going anywhere else. So it means that if you do not have a cancerous cell, your body is going to eliminate the product into a matter of hours because it's not penetrating healthy cells. So you pee the product in a matter of hours without toxicity and without side effects. So my father published about all those results. He got the interest of a lot of French doctors because, of course, it means going through to cancerous cells wherever they are located. Here we have a glioblastoma, but it recognizes cells whose DNA is destabilized. So it doesn't matter anymore if it is a prostate cell, a cancerous cell, a breast cancerous cells, an ovarian cancerous cells, pancreatic cancerous cells. It will focus on those cancerous cells wherever they are located. So the French doctors my father was speaking to absolutely loved this approach, non-toxic and working on every cancer. So they started to treat a number of French patients with this approach. And then one day, the French president, François Mitterrand, was diagnosed with advanced prostate cancer. The terms were 7 years at the time in France. So the surgeon came to the French White House, proceed with the surgery and said the president is not going to finish his second term. You have to prepare the country to early elections. So you have powerful people who dream of the idea of getting more powerful to seize power. And then, it's a French story. So the president had a mistress who knew a good doctor who had good results on prostate cancer because he was using my father's products. And Mitterrand started to take my father's products. And against all odds, he got better and better, and he was able to finish his second term. So as long as the president was taking the products, my father was kind of protected. But the day where eventually Mitterrand passed away, that was really the end for my father, the political class. So many powerful people hated the fact that natural products were doing better than what the drugs were supposed to do, because the diagnosis of the president had become so public. There was no way to explain otherwise that he had been able to finish his second term, except as those natural products. So that was not acceptable. And they decided to destroy the man and destroy the research. So they sent a SWAT team with machine dogs, with dogs, animals, and to destroy everything. And they even radiated my father, who started to become very, very sick just a few months after the raid. And my father also passed away. They arrested my father, and then they did do nothing to give him his day in court, which in my view as a lawyer was also an evidence that they knew they had done something and that he was going to pass away. They just had to wait. And I could not prove that, but there was so many things that were going wrong in the way they arraigned him, indicted him, everything, that I decided to take the case to the European Court of Human Rights, and we won an unanimous decision because the French government had nothing to present for their defense. They just destroy and then go figure why.
So there is the outrage, right? There's where the passion comes from.
So I said, the more I was digging, the more I was trying to help my father's case law, that I understood that it was going beyond my father. Why do they want to destroy this man? Why do they want to wipe out this research from Earth? And I really understood that at that point on only, that he had something to offer that was really worth carry on and keep protecting that and try to create interest somewhere else, maybe in America, with the hope that other people would pick up on this research and carry on with the legacy. And that's why I created the Beljanski Foundation, the non-for-profit. And I am being blessed to get to see how many people are now willing to help me to carry on this legacy.
To fight the fight, right?
Yeah, it's a good fight.
Ladies and gentlemen, I thought it was great to hear that story, because we hear those things behind closed doors, right? You hear about this, and then you wonder if it's actually true, right? Especially here in this country, this person had some information and then they're no longer here, or who knows, right? These theories that are out there, they call it conspiracy theories, right? But this is a real live event that happened, based on the fact that there was natural products that were getting good results, right?
Yeah.
And that's why, because I asked you offline, that's why they shut it down, correct?
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So listen, great. I think carrying on your father's legacy and really seeing that and seeing what he went through, there's a lot of kudos and respect there. So I just wanted to, I wanted to say that. I think that's a great honor. There's Dr. Keneally.
Hi, Sylvie.
Hello. Hello.
Great to see you.
Good to see you too. And thank you for making that happen tonight.
Oh, no, we have to spread and change and transform the future of healthcare and humanity, and you and me and Dr. Roney and everyone that's trying to share, cutting edge information that everyone needs to know. That's what this is all about.
Absolutely.
And to catch you up, Sylvie went through some of her dad's work, right, and some of the natural products that he found that were really helpful. And then also when they shut his lab down and what happened there, right, and then Sylvie's championing, if you will, that just after that all happened, got him exonerated, basically, right, Sylvie, in court.
Yeah, absolutely. And the European Court of Human Rights condemns France for violating his most basic rights. Yes, absolutely.
Right.
So that's where we are. So the next slides, I know they're on some research on it and so forth. So I'll let you all.
Yeah. So after my father's passing, there was this non-for-profit organization created, and to carry on with the research. And I wanted to, when we designed the research programs, I really wanted to confirm what my father had shown, it is not specific of a specific organ. The activity of the paupera and the revolvia vomitoria is not specific to a specific organ. It doesn't matter if it is here we have prostate, ovaries, colorectal, pancreatic cancer. It doesn't matter. Every time those little plant extracts are going to recognize the cells which are cancerous and go get them and destroy them. So that's four different publications which are recent and confirming this approach, which is really this selective to cancerous cells wherever they are located. And the research that was conducted at Kansas University also confirmed that there was a synergy of action between chemotherapies and those extracts. You have the second paper here from
this one here, Sylvie?
from the right. This one, yes, Paupera potentiates carboplatin effects against ovarian cancer. So we have a synergy of action between carboplatin and the Paupera extract. And here, the last one, you have a potentiation, inhibition of pancreatic cancer and potentiation of gemcitabine, which is another chemotherapy with the Paupera extract. So it works alone and it works also in synergy with chemotherapies, which is very, very important for people because when they are at the hospital, they most of all of them have to get the chemotherapy. And when you look at the next slide, you will see also the same thing with Revolvia vomitoria, the benefits, the anti-cancer activity on different kind of cancer cell lines. Here we have prostate, ovaries, pancreas, and again, we speak here, the second and the third one are speaking of synergy, potentialization with chemotherapies, again, carboplatin, and here gemcitabine. So that's really research that we wanted to do at the Beljanski Foundation to confirm this approach. And then we were able to take it a step further. At the beginning, you were mentioning the cancer stem cells and the fact that they can induce recurrence of cancer. They may induce recurrence of cancer. And the reason why they are doing that is because they do resist chemotherapy. So if you look at the next one, the next slide, you see how you have a malignant tumor, and it includes a number of cells which are shown here in red, which are the cancer stem cells, and they are more aggressive than the regular cancer cells. They are going to resist chemotherapy. So the doctor is saying, oh, it's great. So the tumor is shrinking. You are responding well to the treatment. But some cancer stem cells may be still there and may eventually travel somewhere else in the body, multiply, and create a new tumor. And that's why it is so important to have a number of therapies able to destroy those cancer stem cells. It's not because chemotherapy cannot do it that we do not have any other resource. And we decided to look at those Paupera extracts and this Revolvia vomitoria extract because they are doing so well already on so different kind of cancer cell lines. And we said, it's worth trying on cancer stem cells. And if you look at the next slide, we tried, we worked with Kansas University Medical Center again, and we have here Pau Pereira on the left, Revolvia vomitoria. No, you have ovarian cancer cell lines, cancer stem cell lines on the left, and you have Paupera and Revolvia vomitoria, and both are inhibiting between 50 microgram per milliliter, are inhibiting those cancer stem cells from ovaries. And here we were so happy to see that we did it again on pancreatic cancer stem cells. And again, the miracle happened here between 50 microgram per milliliter, and here with the Revolvia vomitoria, it took a little bit longer, but it happened between 100 micromilliliter and 200. And remember, there is no toxicity unhealthy cells. So we were so pleased with that. We went on to try on animals, and that's the next slide. And you can see, so in vitro and in vivo here in mice by gavage, which is also very important because you want to have a route of absorption which is going to be similar to what people are going to do with natural plant extracts, which is taking it orally. While you have inhibition of those cancer stem cells in vivo, here with Paupera and pancreatic cancer stem cells. Paupera and Revolfia inhibit ovarian cancer stem cells, and here Revolfia also on mice. So that we were very, very proud of that, and that's the work that we have been doing on really with those two plant extracts for the past few years. And the idea is now to fund a new research program specifically on breast cancer stem cells, because there are, breast cancer is killing a lot of people, and those who are not killed, and there are a lot of them. I mean, there are a lot of cancer survivors nowadays with breast cancer, but they have this fear that cancer could come back, and we want to see if we can help them. And that's what the next phase of research that we are trying to fund. Thank you for sharing that. So that's another plant extract that my father worked on. It's made of golden ginkgo biloba leaves, which is quite different from the green ginkgo biloba extract. And my father made the observation that this very specific golden leaf extract was able to help regulate the nuclease of the liver, which go havoc when people get cancer. And by also regulating the nuclease of the liver, he was also able to avoid fibrosis that can of the skin that can result from radiation. So that's really the example of a product that is really thought to work together along with conventional treatment. And there is another one also like that my father perfected, if you want to continue. Mm-hmm. Oh, by the way, before we move to another one, the recent research that we have done with ginkgo showed that the same golden ginkgo leaf extract is also inhibiting, we have seen that my father was showing a number of nuclease and enzymes. It is including, and that's a new research, including angiogenin. And that's very important because angiogenin is this enzyme that is going to help cancer cells to create new blood vessels to feed themselves. So if you prevent them to create those new blood vessels, you are in a way starving the cancer cells selectively again. And that's another way to attack cancerous cells, which is can be taken in addition to what we have seen with Paupera and Revolfia vomitoria. And this is about another product called little RNA fragments, which are specific of the DNA of the bone marrow and help the bone marrow do its job. It's supporting the bone marrow to do its job. And the job of the bone marrow is to create white blood cells and platelets, which are at the core of our immune system and are very often destroyed like casualties of chemotherapies, like collateral damage of when you give chemotherapy. So unprotected patient is what happened theoretically to cancer patients receiving chemotherapy. At the beginning, it starts with a number of platelets, which is pretty decent. But as the bone marrow is damaged by chemotherapy, round after chemo, it's able to less and less to rebound and create a decent number of platelets. That's what we were looking at. And at some point, there is not enough platelets created. And that's why side effects of chemo called thrombocytopenia. And when there is not enough platelets, then the blood is not clotting anymore. So people can bleed literally to death, and you have to stop the chemotherapy. And that's a real complication of the treatment. So we're able to have a clinical trial at Cancer Treatment Centers of America a few years ago, where we had patients with different kind of cancer, different protocols of chemotherapy. What they had in common is that they were all at the verge of thrombocytopenia. So they started all at the verge of thrombocytopenia. And they take the RNA fragments and they get better. Of course, with the chemotherapy, it goes down, but then it goes up again as they take the RNA fragments, and then new chemotherapy, it goes down. But what you see, it's round after round after round, the bone marrow is able to bounce back. And at the end, you are at the same level than you started without any further damage imposed to the bone marrow. So that's a protected patient. And I have to say that in this clinical trial, none of the patients enrolled with the RNA fragments had developed chemotherapy, and none of them had to stop their chemo treatment. Mm-hmm. So that's we had that also published. That's the next paper. Mm-hmm. Next slide. So that's a publication. By the way, everything that I mentioned is you can download all those publications. They are all available on the website of the Beljanski Foundation, beljanski.org. And what we do at the foundation is we share, we do the research in conjunctions with a number of academic institutions, and then we share everything with the website. That's how we work. So here is a paper on dose escalation study. We went with 20 milligrams, 40 milligrams, 60 milligrams, 80 milligrams of those RNA fragments without seeing any toxicity, any side effect. And it worked very well to avoid thrombocytopenia. No adverse events, no patient underwent a reduction of their chemotherapy, and the RNA fragments appear to accelerate the recovery in platelet counts. Accelerate the recovery. Never you will see too many platelets or too many white blood cells. It will help the body to find the proper physiological level, and that's very, very important. So it helps stabilize, elevate the platelet number at the nadir, meaning when it's at the lowest, it's supposed to go back up to a normal level. So that's what we have been doing over the years, and that's why those results are beautiful, and that's why I'm so proud, and I'm grateful every time I have an opportunity to speak about what we are doing. So that's what people can do to help themselves. I am absolutely convinced that what we can do with the little products I described is to provide support at the cellular level. But we are much more than a bunch of cells. So we are humans. So to go back to the beginning of what you said, there are several pillars of health that we have to respect, to understand, and to respect and to value. And the first thing to do is to remove the toxins identify them, support the liver, but that's not enough. And we have to help, remove the heavy metals, the food that is inducing inflammation. We have to nourish our body properly. If that's not enough, then there are the plant extracts I mentioned, but that's not enough. And we are more than that. So we have to address the emotional balance, the spiritual connections, all that is important, along with the physical fitness, all that is important to define what health is. And it's only if you address all those pillars that you will maybe need a little support additional to that, because life is always throwing at us some curve balls, but otherwise that's what you need to do to remain healthy. And if you don't, unfortunately, we live in such a toxic world right now, physical and emotional, that you will need to go to a doctor, and hopefully you will find a good doctor like Dr. Connelly.
Thank you. Thank you. So maybe we should ask questions if anybody wants to ask questions.
Yeah, for sure. So ladies and gentlemen, you can put your questions in the Q&A as opposed to the chat. We'll pull up the Q&A and then we'll start answering those questions. Okay, here we go. So have you had any luck reversing rheumatoid arthritis? Sorry, it is not a cancer question, but I know inflammation can cause cancer down the road. Thank you.
Yes, one of this research that we conducted, and that was with Columbia University, was on inflammation, because inflammation is can evolve into cancer. So we are able to confirm that both paupera and Rauwolfia vomitoria have an anti-inflammatory ability. And that also echoes what a number of people have told us, combining the different extracts because they are acting in different ways. So obviously the RNA fragments help support the immune system, and then you want to, at the same time, you support your immune system, you want to diminish inflammation. But we have heard of people happy with this approach.
Right. And rheumatoid arthritis, just like any illness, has many facets. Just like Sylvie said at the last slide, all the different things that we have to address. And one of the things that you have to address with rheumatoid arthritis is make sure your doctor has done a mycoplasma pneumonia titer to see if you have that, because a lot of people think it's related to a microorganism or microorganisms. And so, but again, you have to change the terrain, the soil, all the things we've talked about. Any doctor who is not addressing the entire biological system, there's no way you can get a person well. You saw the slide that when you give chemotherapy, how the circulating stem cells get very violent and more vicious. And so that's why you've got to protect the patient along when you have to do chemotherapy. And so when rheumatoid arthritis, there's a ton of inflammation, many levels, tiers of general and then targeted treatment. So, it's not just simply taking, an immunotherapy, because immunotherapy increases your risk for cancer. So some of the drugs that they use are very, very damaging to the body and to the cells, and increase your risk of. I've had patients where they've gotten cancer from the treatment itself. So you want to
suppresses your immune system.
Yeah, suppresses your immune system. So you want to be very, very careful.
But yes, there's a lot you can do. So
yes,
yeah, a lot you can do.
And you never see those side effects, deleterious side effects with the natural approach.
That's right. That's right.
Correct.
That's
yeah,
right. That's
point.
one big thing. Nobody's died from anything natural. So, and they do the amount of deaths per year for natural. There's no one that dies from that. So, so one of the questions is, how often should you repeat the RGCC? Well, typically I will draw it in about 9 months. Specifically, Oncobel is always on the RGCC lab, the efficacious nature. And most people, it has a positive effect. So Oncobel Pro will be typically one of the supplements administered to patients. So,
and thank you for mentioning that. And Oncobel Pro is made of the Paupera, the Revolvia vomitoria, and the golden ginkgo I just mentioned.
Right, exactly. So all those ingredients she was talking about is in the Oncobel Pro. And anyway, so RGCC should be, checked about 9 months to a year. Some people check it more frequently, but I have found, because, doing this test for many years, I find that, you rotate the supplements and then we check it in about a year, 9 months to a year, depending on the patient.
And you'll do it sooner if they have a SOT, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So the supportive oligonucleotide therapy, that might be done in 4 months,
right.
roughly,
So,
right? Just to make sure we know that that's working well.
Right.
So it's just a caveat there.
So this is a good question for Sylvie.
Yeah. So and how do you say it again?
Rawalfa.
Rawalfa. It says in high doses, it can cause severe depression, anxiety, some gallbladder issues, Parkinson's symptoms. This patient said a doctor put my husband on 900 milligrams for high blood pressure, and he went into severe depression, anxiety, gallbladder issues, etc.
Exactly. So my father noticed, there was a big controversy about Revolvia vomitoria already back in the 80s because it was used to lower blood pressure, but there was rumors already at the time that it could induce cancer. So he looked at this extract and he found out that there are two molecules, main molecules. One is called reserpine and is linked to lowering the blood pressure, but also inducing cancer. And another one called alstonine, which is all good, fighting cancer without toxicity, without side effect. So the Revolvia vomitoria extract that we are using is devoid of reserpine. There is no reserpine, it's reserpine free. So forget everything you have heard about lowering blood pressure and also toxicity and carcinogenicity of this extract. We are speaking of a purified extract here, which does none of those properties, is only focused on fighting cancer cells.
Good explanation. What numbers CTC on the RGCC would you say you're in good remission, or you're in remission? Sorry.
Right. So our goal is to get a patient to 0 to 1 on the circulating tumor cell. And again, that is just one platform of healing, because people have many other things that we look at. So we don't just look at that one thing. That's a very important thing, because circulating tumor cells are responsible for 95% of metastasis. But, don't put all your eggs in that basket. So,
the Oncobel Pro, how effective or efficient is it at killing various types of cancer based on the RGCC test and percentage of efficacies?
I think you see that firsthand, but we are working with a number of doctors who are using the RGCC test, and we hear back from a number of them. And it seems that there is a very, very large number of cancer, different kind of cancer, which are benefiting from or are going to benefit from Oncobel according to the RGCC test. And that's, again, as I explained, because both extracts are not specific to such and such cancer. They will recognize cancerous cells, which look different from healthy cells, and they are going to target those cells, invade the nucleus and nucleoli of those cancerous cells, and prevent them to duplicate. This we call apoptosis, and it has been demonstrated again and again on different kinds of cancer cell lines that both plant extracts induce apoptosis of those cancerous cells without any effect on healthy cells.
That's right. Very true. I'll second that. So it's many, many different cancers. So it's not just one cancer, but it comes up on a real regular basis. So,
yeah.
So.
All right. Well, another question is are there any supplements that could replace the hormonal therapy with tamoxifen?
Well, what we use if patients have side effects with tamoxifen or they just don't like it, and of course, this is individually decided upon, but we will use a estrogen blocker, natural one that's called Myomin. So some of my patients, everybody's different. And so I decide with the patient and how long it's been. But I will tell you the studies show that tamoxifen has good efficacy, especially for the first 2 years. So, but there's not a one size fits all for every patient. And so, but Myomin is a good alternative.
Okay. Do the herbs described, can they be used for cancer prevention?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have a lot of people who either have had cancer, are afraid to have cancer coming back, or have a family history of cancer and want to take some preventive steps. Mm-hmm. And you don't need to take those products, all year around. You just have to do the proper lifestyle, detox from time to time, nourish your cells properly. And then you take Paupera or Volfiavomitoria like 2 months a year, twice a year. And we know a lot of people who are just doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what should we ask our oncologist for to bring up our platelets, hemoglobin, and white blood cell neutrophils during chemo?
Well, we just heard about the product right now that helps the platelets. Okay, that's number one. Number two, white cells. I use thymus. We can use something called thymus PMG because your thymus gland sits here in your chest. And so as we age, though, our thymus is not as functional, starting at the age of about 21. So probably everyone over 60 should be even taking something like that naturally because your immune system is not what it used to be. But especially if someone is doing a chemotherapy, I will use a peptide called thymosin alpha, or I'll use thymus PMG. And I have ordered thymus from Europe also. And so it's very clear, it's very used all the time in Europe, thymus. Now, every patient doing chemotherapy should be taking immune support. So you've heard us talk before about Protectivol, and I use a product from Japan called BRM4. So we always give our patient counterbalancing if they're going to do chemotherapy. So you absolutely should be doing protective support when you're doing it, any kind of drug, but especially chemotherapy.
Okay, can LDN be used to prevent cancer, and does it help the immune system? Are there benefits or negative side effects taking it in doses under 3.0 milligrams daily?
Yeah, naltrexone is an amazing substance. And it can be very, very effective at low dosages. Usually the highest we go up, it's about 5 milligrams. And it's not just used in cancer. I don't know if people use it for prevention of cancer, but I do know the studies of Bahari, the doctor who used low dose, he found that the patients who took low dose naltrexone had less cancer. So, but I've never had anyone talk about it for prevention, definitely in treatment, and not just in cancer, but many other conditions because it has an overall support for the immune system. So it's something that can be very beneficial and okay at those low dosages.
Will the results be the same when each product is used independently, or the use of Oncobel, Immunobel do it? So will the results be the same when each product is used independently, or the use of Oncobel and Immunobel do it?
Well, I mean, you can take each extract separately, or you can take them all in one. I think a lot of people find that more efficient and easier to use than a lot of little capsules. And then the doctor knows exactly how much you have been taking, because the doctor is the one providing Oncobel or Immunobel.
Okay. Upcoming conference. Were you doing a
She is. Dr.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Tell us about that.
Yes. So we are going to co-host a conference in Jacksonville, Florida, October 13 to 15. It's a conference all about integrative cancer. And there will be a lot of speakers, specialists addressing all various aspects of anti-cancer approach from different angles, which is all what is integrative approach is all about. It's a big tent, big family. And one of the purpose of the conference is to help fund the research program of breast cancer stem cells. So we hope that a lot of people will come. If they don't come, they can get virtual tickets. They will learn a lot of things, and their contribution will help fund this very important research program.
And when is that again? So
Jacksonville, October 13 to 15.
13th to the 15th, and tickets online at that website?
Online, integrativecancerconference.com. Integrativecancerconference.com.
Okay, perfect. We'll put that out there too.
Thank you.
Does your clinic use these products to treat patients?
Yes. Yeah. Every day, all the time. Yeah.
Do any of these results apply to insulin potentiated therapy, IPT?
Yes. Yes. So IPT, for the people that might not know, that's the fractionated chemo. It's the low dose chemo therapy as opposed to full dose. We use 10% dose of chemo as opposed to 100%. So even if you do 10%, patients can have low platelets and they can have low white count and they can have side effects, because chemotherapy is chemotherapy. So.
Sources for POW and RAW extracts?
The source of the Paupera is coming from South America, and the Ravolfia vomitoria is coming from West Africa. It's one of the beauty of those plants also is that the sustainability. Paupera is able to regrow the bark. It sheds naturally, and if you shave the bark and you are respectful and you leave 20% of the bark, it will regrow by itself. As per Ravolfia vomitoria, it grows like a weed, so it's not there is no problem there. And we do fair trade, and so it helps a lot of people to understand the value of their environment in the Amazon. If they have trees that they can cultivate, they can cultivate the bark, come back to the same tree, then they have an incentive not to cut the tree and not to destroy the Amazon. So there is added value actually in choosing an approach which is natural and respectful all the way, respectful at the level of our cells, respectful at the level of the planet.
What they ask also, Sylvie, about the dosage of Paupera and Ravolfia.
So we generally, the research that we have done is showing 20 milligrams for mice. So it's about the equivalent of 4 or 5 capsules of PAU-VFM or 4 or 5 capsules of Oncobel to have a full treatment with Powerol and Ginkgo.
Mhm.
How do the blood cancers fit into this?
Right. Well, blood cancers still have circulating tumor cells, whether it's a leukemia or a AML, all it doesn't matter. So they have circulating stem cells and tumor cells. So that's why cancers come back. Remember, big reasons is circulating stem cells and the terrain you didn't change. So it doesn't matter if it's a tumor cancer or a blood cancer.
Yeah, and those extracts are able to recognize again the cells which are different because they are cancerous and able to target those cells, whether they are in the tumor or in the blood.
Right.
Okay, I think we answered some of those. Where can you purchase the extracts? We have them here, right?
Yeah, they're at the store, perfectly
Yeah,
healthy store.
You can find them with Dr. Connelly's clinic.
Okay, let's see. Did the RGCC followed by SOT December, January 23 for stage 4 ER plus breast cancer metastasized to lung with lung pleura with other supportive treatments, infrared, detox, detox, great diet, and more since 2020. Low grade Ki-67 is 5, looks like CAT scan, which is good. Then showed progressive disease. Should I try another RGCC or did it fail? Question mark. Started letrozole after CT results. Only natural substances or supplements for 52 years.
Wow. So I don't really know your case completely because typically I don't know if your scan showed any cancer because you have stage 4 ER positive and it had what's in the lung, pleura. So you can't give a SOT just for that. So I'm not sure the full picture. If you can send me your information so I can help you better. I need much more information, Brenda, because it sounds like you had stage 4 ER positive and you did a lot of things, but
causes
something doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So I need, if you can send me your information through Vicki and Tracy through the Cancer Center for Healing, and I'll look at your records and help you.
How about leiomyosarcoma? Any specific treatments more targeted for this type of cancer?
Well, leiomyosarcoma, so that is a cancer of smooth muscle, and sarcoma can be a cancer of muscle and bone. So it's a very serious cancer, typically doesn't respond to chemo and radiation. So you must be very, 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 in capital letters, proactive. If you've had, I don't know if you've had treatment or surgery before, but I have lots of treatments, a lot of experience treating leiomyosarcoma. So one thing I will tell anybody with that diagnosis is prevention. So if you had a surgery to remove, for example, a leiomyosarcoma in the uterus, then again, you've got to change every single thing, go get your circulating tumor cells. I mean, you have to do a very, very aggressive, thorough evaluation because as Sylvie was talking, we're living in the great poisoning. I've mentioned this to you guys before. And so, you know, we know what one toxin does, but we don't know what 400 do together every day in your body. And so if you don't get rid of all of the thorns that are causing and contributing to the cancer, we can't change. But, you know, prevention, proactive, precise, you know, prevention, if you've had cancer, is the only way to go. And I always tell patients always say, like, when am I done? Well, you're never done with your health. There's no finish line for health. It's an ongoing 24-hour day process. And there's rules and laws of the body. We know them. We've got to, all of us have to follow them. No one's exempt. And so, but medicine is not precise. It's not predictive. It's not preventive. It's not personalized. And so that's the only way to go. We know that there's a book written on this now that was written by an 84-year-old doctor. I forget his name. And he talks about this. And so because we now know that what is the trends in healthcare and medicine and sick care is that we're spending the most we've ever spent, and we have the worst
Trillions.
outcome, and life expectancy is lower, and everybody's sick. So everybody should be questioning their doctor, what they're doing, their life, because that is the reality.
The system.
And 93% of the population is metabolically unhealthy. That's published in conventional journals a year ago. So we all need to do self-reflection and see everything that we can do to attain health and human optimization. So that's my resounding message. I say all the time,
No.
but I have to say it again because I see things, and now we have to be more proactive. Because yesterday my patient is 29 with a parotid gland tumor, and then today was a 43-year-old with recurrent. She's had 6 melanomas this year.
Yeah.
So, and I had another 30-year-old that tells me she has a sarcomatous breast cancer. So I've never seen anything like that. So what I'm saying is the young children are the canaries in the mine, screaming, saying something isn't right. So we, all of us, not just me, not just Dr. Roney, not just Sylvie, all of us have got to ring the alarm bell and take charge, first of all, of our personal health, but also spread the message everywhere, because it's not just US, this is a worldwide pandemic proportion problem. So
I am going to take advantage of that to make a shameless plug.
No, go ahead.
My book, because in chapter 10 of the book, I have a number of questions to ask to your doctors to help to prepare people to discuss their condition with their doctors and ask a number of right questions.
Right. And if your doctor says that natural things don't matter and diet doesn't matter and all of that doesn't matter, then you need to change doctors.
Yeah.
Because I've never read a book where it says you can eat whatever you want. Never a book, weight loss book, cooking book, no book has ever said you can eat anything you want. And then natural supplements, there's so many articles. Sylvie just showed you many articles written in scientific publications. So there's so many articles on natural substances and how efficacious they are in cancer. So
yeah, you're going to have to, I talk about this and you probably do too. If you're going conventional and you have to do some things conventionally, which may be necessary at times, right?
that's right.
However, we talk about this 20 chapter book. That's one chapter of a 20 chapter book. The other 19 chapters are all the things that we're talking about tonight on the cancer conversation that you really should implement. I tell everybody as much as I possibly can, and I know Dr. Keneally does, and Sylvia, it sounds like you do too, create that plan, right? And work through that plan and make sure it's as thorough as we're talking about tonight. And that just gives you the best chance, right? That there's no guarantee ever, but it certainly gives you a much better chance, reduces the downside and increases the upside. And I think that's what it's all about. It's making sure that you have a good plan, that you could do everything you can to give your cells and your body a chance to heal. Right. So let's see, how many of those pills do you take before, during, after chemo to potentiate the chemo? How many POW and the vomitoria pills do you take? What would you say with that after to potentiate the chemo?
Well, I mean, everybody is different, and it depends also if you are a small person, a big person. I mean, I would let I'd rather have Dr. Connelly, who has experience with those products, to tell us how
Yeah,
many.
usually I would give them 2 twice a day. So of this particular product.
Of the Ocobel.
Yes. Ocobel Pro. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. I don't know. It's about 20 after 6.
Okay.
I think what we'll typically do at this point is questions. Shep will collect the questions. We will get them answered. We will send them out. I definitely don't want to hold you on too long, Sylvie. And I know we don't want to hold the audience too long either. I know it gets a little tiring.
Yes.
You're right. It does. It's a lot of
Overwhelming.
information. So you get to rewatch this, you get to replay it, you can listen back, you can take notes. I personally want to thank you. It was a pleasure meeting you, Sylvie. That's the first
Thank
time.
you.
And
My pleasure.
yeah, I think your story is fantastic.
What
What your dad did, I think, is fantastic. And you carrying on the legacy is just really, really great. So, and then Dr. Keneally, always thank you for being on. Well,
No, I love it. And I appreciate Sylvie coming on, and we need all of these warriors out there to share message and keep this movement going.
So anyway, I want to take the opportunity to thank you all for being here. Have a great couple weeks. We'll see you in a couple weeks. And again, Sylvie, thank you very much for being on.
Thank you. Thank you very much, both of you.
All right.
All right, y'all. Have a great couple weeks, Sylvie. Take care.
Bye.